The Mundelein Christmas cards have just gone out. Some of your families will have received them already. I have one here, and this year what was chosen for the cover is what I think are sacred grounds, the beautiful grounds here, the seminary in winter, and what are probably our most recognizable living representations, non-human, some of the deer. Don't say that humorously. Deer in the grounds. I've already started to get love mail in response to this card. If you open the card, what you see is a quote from the Psalms, probably the most obvious quote that comes to mind, one of the most beloved quotes in the Christian tradition from the Psalter. From Psalm 42, it's the deer that longs for running water. But as I said, I've already started to get love mail about this card. How dare I send out a secular card? How dare I send out something that the secular world around us is embracing so quickly, dropping what is truly holy and sacred from this sacred season? But I want to make clear, this is not Rudolph. There are no jingle bells around his neck. There's nary a ho, ho, ho to be found anywhere in the card. But what does it mean that we've gotten to a point where we can look at the sublime beauty of a seminary, no less, accompanied by one of the most sublime and beautiful passages from the sacred Psalms, and we can't see what's actually there? When I was a student here, along with Father Dennis, a little bit after Father Scott, a little bit before Father Brian, Father Hennessy never tired of telling us that the language of Christianity is mystery and puzzle and paradox. Maybe he still does that. But what that means is, as you look out at the world, it isn't always telegraphed to you. The sublime beauty that no human mind can fully grasp, it isn't just laid out with crystal clarity. And have we lost the ability to recognize it? Sometimes it's those of us who are closest to these truths, who write them, sing about them, teach them to others, who can most easily fail to see beneath the mystery or the paradox or the puzzle, because there's something in human nature that wants to make it unmysterious, that wants to make it very clear, that wants to make it something I can easily teach. And the teaching and the clarity is hugely important, but at the end of the day, we should never lose sight of the mystery that's there. And you're only going to know that by somehow being able to see the fruit, the manifestation of the mystery. What does it look like in the world? It's often the way you get to it. And I'd like to suggest that the value of the Immaculate Conception, the beauty of it, the power of it, the glory of it, is most easily told through its fruits. How did we come to know that this must have been the situation when Mary herself was conceived? At the start of this year, I talked about a vision that I had for what priestly formation could look like. And I talked about three qualities. That idea that a priest needs to have an interior freedom, and that interior freedom would lead to creativity and would lead to confidence in the man. Not false, surface, cheap creativity and not cockiness, but something that was capable of really seeing what is new and bringing to life, inspired by the Spirit, something that is new, and a confidence that goes with it, to be able to walk into any situation. Now, some people said to me, and it was a fair comment, fair constructive criticism, "Father, that's all very nice, but you don't mention Christ anywhere in that. You could get a self-help book from Barnes & Noble, and it would tell you about be free, be confident, be creative." But where is Christ to be found in the midst of all that? We talk about Christ all the time. We pray about him. We sing about him. We write about him. We teach about him. But what does that actually look like in our lives? Interior freedom, creativity, confidence. I named those at the start of the year under the big tent, but what I didn't tell you is that where I got it from is from Mary. If there's one human being who's ever manifested those qualities for me, it's Mary. And if there's one scene where you ever see that more powerfully than anywhere else, it's in our gospel today, the Annunciation. Think about it. The interior freedom to be eyeball to eyeball with Gabriel and to hear that message. How do we know she was free? Well, for me, the biggest sign that she was free is that she wasn't afraid to show her fear. And somehow that fear must have been shown because Gabriel said, "Don't be afraid." The ability to show your fear, the ability to be vulnerable in the face of something that is disorienting. Are we free enough to allow ourselves to be that transparent? Because when we're not free, that's often when we most look put together. That's often when we fall back on our skill set. Some of the least free moments in my life are precisely when I get most pats on my back. Yeah, great, thanks for sharing that with us. Oh, you've received beautiful gifts around that. And inside I know. Once in a while the freedom is there, but a lot of times there's fear. And fear will always be constricting, it will always be confining. So lacking interior freedom doesn't mean that you walk around like a turtle in its shell. And that's the insidious thing about it. Because a lot of times it looks like you're free as a bird, but inside you know, because of shame, because of fear, because of whatever it might be. Is the fruit of Mary's Immaculate Conception partially that she could live with that interior freedom? Yeah, no doubt. But what is the fruit of the grace of our baptism? For the deacons and priests here, what is the fruit of the grace of our orders? For those in sacramental marriage, consecrated life, what is the fruit of that lifetime sacramental commitment? And for all of us, as I said here, what is the fruit of the grace of our baptism or our reception of the sacraments? Is there real interior freedom? Because if that freedom is there, then when the moments come, we can listen, not afraid to show our fear or vulnerability, and we stay in the midst of it. And wonderful things come. What is a sign of Mary's creativity? Well, certainly we might say her very reception of our Lord. That is definitely something new. But also the creativity to be open, and she expresses it soon in the Magnificat prayer. To be able to re-see the world in a totally different way. To be able to envision a world where ordinary power structures are flipped on their heads. Most of us don't move on those large global stages. But what does it look like for us? What is creative in our lives that isn't only coming from our personal skills, but that somehow is being inspired by the Spirit to bring forth something new that we couldn't do on our own? And a lot of times it looks fairly simple and small, but we should never underestimate the power of that new thing in the life of the woman or man or child we're with. Any spouse knows this. They could readily point to where is the creativity in the love that we share. The love of God can't be uncreative. It's simply impossible. And if we can receive the Spirit with interior freedom, there will always be something new. So never listen to the lie of the serpent whispering in your ear, saying, "No, there's nothing here. I didn't wow anyone today. I blew it, I failed, I dropped the ball. Maybe creativity will show up tomorrow." Never listen to that lie. With every breath you take, there is the capacity for something wonderful and new to be born. And the confidence grows from that. Confidence can only be born of experience. None of us has a confidence switch on our back that we just wake up and flip. It only comes from wading into uncertainty. It only comes from getting to that point of interior freedom that we can say, yeah, I'm shaking in my boots, but I'm here. I got my boots on, and I'm not running away. Last night, Deacon Ryan beautifully reminded us of the fact that there is no statue of Mary in this wonderful chapel. The chapel itself is the statue. And he gave us a little spiritual tour of the architecture. But if there were going to be a statue of Mary in here, can tee this up for tonight. Yeah, it costs less than speed bumps. If there were going to be a statue of Mary in here, the one I would choose is not Madonna and Child. It wouldn't be some of the other depictions of Mary. It would be the Pietà. And it wouldn't be one of the ones that's so familiar to us. I'd try to find one that was just a little bit jarring, a little bit forcing us to face a depiction of that scene that maybe we weren't so familiar with. Because for me, the affective fruit of the Immaculate Conception is that moment. Talk about freedom. When just about everyone else had run away from the cross, there was Mary, free enough in her grief, in her sadness, not thinking I'm at phase 2 of the Paschal mystery and I know better times are coming, but to be there holding the corpse of her dead son. I can't tell you how many times I've run away from that corpse. How many times I've said thanks but no thanks. I'll teach you about it. 8th graders, line up. Let me tell you all about this. Let me show you the sublime beauty of Mary at that moment. Very few times I've felt interiorly free enough to remain there. Creative, in a strange sort of way, what could be more creative than a mother holding her child at that moment? Love manifested in a way it had never shown itself before. And confident, that's real confidence. For her to be there at that moment, at that time. And a lot of times we can be tricked. We can be tricked into false creativity that's a perversion, not of interior freedom, but reflects an interior captivity. And we just shine off of other glory than God's. We can be tricked into a sort of confidence that is rooted in our ego, that is not true confido, but is cockiness and egoism. And there's no word less appropriate to describe Mary in that moment, as she sits there with her dead son in her arms. And so just an invitation on this great feast day that really should ground every aspect of our formation, of our prayer, of our study, of our ministering to others, especially the others sitting around us in the pews. And just to say, how does Mary model for me interior freedom? What's the creative reality that comes out of it? And am I confident enough to manifest that freedom, even when others look at it and might see weakness? Am I confident enough to know that if I can stay here, something new will really be born? That's a beautiful invitation to receive on this feast day of the Immaculate Conception. We know what that prevenient grace looked like in Mary's life. What does it look like in ours?